Hello and welcome back to Drumboy Reads Slow. This is another long run review. I am Drumboy Reads Slow. That's my handle and that's who I am. It's a little cold tonight. I happen to be wearing this gift a friend, God rest her soul. She's not with us anymore, but I got her here with me tonight, keeping me warm. We are going to be doing the current From the Ashes comic book giant X-Men, the current run, with Jed McKay on writing and Ryan Stegman on art. Most of the series, anyhow. There's a few fill-in artists. I can't remember their names, and I didn't particularly like the shift in art when that happened. But this is a nice time to be an X-Men fan. It's not perfect, but let's get into it. All right, let's go. X-Men by Jed McKay with artwork by Ryan Stegman. This is a fast-paced version of X-Men. This is the less Dawson Creek version of X-Men than Uncanny is. We got Scott Summers as the team leader. We got Magneto sitting in Professor X's spot. We got stuff like Alpha Flight jumping in for an issue or two. We got Imposter X-Men. We got you thinking that X-Men are dying left and right, and then they turn out to survive. We got all sorts of stuff. And if you missed out on X-Men because you thought you only needed to follow Uncanny, you made a mistake, brother. Before we get into the first impressions and more or less the explanation of what we got here, I do want to quickly say that I'm going to try and make these reviews a little bit more brief, a little bit quicker. We have started a scoring criteria. I proved in the last video I couldn't properly add up decimal points, so I got the score wrong at the end, I believe. But that's okay. I'm not a mathematician, and that was never me. So the only thing I can count are drums. And I know a lot of my viewers, based on what I'm actually seeing, are here for the drum videos. I'm getting myself ready. I've been out of action for a while. My band and I did a record, and my part was turned in quite a while ago. They're working on that, and so I'm just getting back into it. And I don't really know what I'm gonna do with the drums as far as the channel goes yet. I have some good ideas that I feel, I like to teach and I like to share. So, anyhow, this comic, this channel is primarily about comics. So let's get into it. All right. X-Men, issue 1. We're introduced to the new team. We got Cyclops, Beast, Magneto at the head, Psylocke, Kid Omega, Temper, not Tempest, like I got it wrong in the previous video about Uncanny X-Men, Ilyana Rasputin, aka Magic, and for some reason, Juggernaut. So from the get-go, I come into this a little bit skeptical. Magneto is Professor X. I've seen that before. Cyclops as the leader is my version of the X-Men anyway. But then outside of Beast, this team feels so random and thrown together. And to find out that not only was I actually outside of Psylocke, who just kind of, for me, she's just kind of floating there, I connected with all the characters. This title versus, so I'm going to use a lot of comparing it to the Uncanny X-Men line. Uncanny X-Men is like Dawson's Creek with mutants by comparison to this. This puts the character relations in the back seat. Scott is constantly in contact with a representative of the U.S. government. The mutant, the X-Men are considered, they're like exonerated. They were considered traitors, and now they're exonerated from that. Professor X is not in the picture. They do not feel good about Charles right now. Juggernaut, I don't know why he's there. this is the first run that I've read in the current era. But he does have a really funny and interesting chemistry, not like a romantic chemistry, but he has a thing with magic. They kind of do a tag team thing a lot. This, by comparison to Uncanny, is the more procedural, the more superhero, the more, even though arcs will go several issues and there's like ongoing just background stories in the background. There is long-term storytelling as well as the short-term storytelling. And the short-term storytelling, when I say procedural, these are missions they're going on. These are things they're responding to, immediate threats. There's a lot going on in this comic. They do try to tie in at several points, like with the raid on Greymalkin. That ties in with Uncanny. That was kind of a low point for both series, if I'm being honest. They didn't really need to do that. X-Men, more than Uncanny for me, was a readable, just sequential read from front to back. Then it was better that way, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I just got through it much faster, and I just felt like I was dealing with the X-Men, the part of the X-Men that I like, the action and their chaotic lives. As a faction, they just see so much chaos. Back when I used to watch the cartoon, I just wanted to be an X-Men so bad, and it was because of all this. And then as I got older, of course, I mean, like, hey, who didn't develop a crush on Rogue and Jubilee? But the social aspects are present here, obviously, with the U.S. government and Scott Summers clashing. But the overall effect, this was just more plain fun, and there weren't as many. I just think the team in general is a risk, but there's not necessarily any risks being taken. It's just classic, procedural superheroes out there, or mutants out there in the world trying to make it a better place and dealing with what comes their way. They just like Uncanny, they bring on some new people here. They don't really make them full-fledged members, but even some of them even start wearing X uniforms. There's a guy who can literally create like visions. He issue 2 ends up being this, that they think they're responding to like what looks like an alien invasion, and it turns out to be just this homeless guy who's just like he's like, he thinks he's lost his mind, and he thinks the aliens are after him, but he's the one creating them. And then there is a woman who, in her time of she needed it in like a situation where she was like running from someone or she was being chased. She gained the ability to adapt to like a reptilian body, so that she could escape a situation, and she thought she was permanently stuck in that. We find out that she can actually take multiple forms, but it's hard for her to tap into it and control it. She's by issue, I believe it's 22, 23 right now. The power is a little bit more under control, and she's actually used it in a useful way. Applied it, so to speak, in the heat of the moment. So, and then she has a growing interest with Hank McCoy. They're kind of sparking a little bit. So there's still some romance, but it kind of sticks to the program. If you're more into action, this is gonna be more for you. Again, it's gonna be so much better if you have all the issues and you read them sequentially. You won't get the same effect reading, just one arc, or starting with the first 5. You're gonna deprive yourself of what it's capable of. This run, Jed McKay, he made a fan out of me here, and I am looking forward to what's next. If there is a what's next, if he's gonna still be on it, I hope he is, because this turned out to be a lot of fun for me. I also really appreciated Ryan Stegman's art on the majority of the issues. This fit the dynamic of, if nothing else, the atmosphere that was created by where Jed McKay took the story. It definitely fit that. Might not have been exactly, what I'm maybe thinking Uncanny is closer to what I envision the X-Men looking like, or what I want to see. But I can't complain about the art. It's action packed. It's action art. He's got a very action based style. So long and short, I'm not gonna go into these like big, like issue by issue spoilers, but like without a doubt, this is definitely the action version, and this is, outside of maybe 4 From the Ashes titles. This ranks among them. This was one of the only ones that I was dead set on continuing with, and I'm glad that it made it and it didn't get canceled. I didn't think it was going to, because it's X-Men. Uncanny X-Men and X-Men, I think they kind of, if they get canceled, Marvel's, looking pretty red in the face. So, but I'm glad it's good, and I think it's gonna probably, on my little meter, score a little bit higher than Uncanny. So let's get into the criteria. Okay, so just to remind everyone what the criteria for this scoring is, and I'm gonna try and be a little bit harder going forward, but I gotta kind of give this the same handicap I gave Uncanny, so that I can show people kind of how I feel, where they kind of level out. They're pretty close though. They're pretty close experiences as far as reader enjoyability, at least in my personal opinion. And I may have just been on an X-Men kick because of X-Men 97, if you know what I mean. So the criteria, back to that. We got overall readability of the entire run. So from issue 1 all the way through current issue, what are you getting? What is the experience? Does it drag on? Is it boring? Does it slowly taper off, or does it get better? Does it increase with more? That score will be based on multiple factors. I guess there's multiple ways to look at it, but then there's also the 1 point. That's a 2-point score. That, by the way, the sequential. There's a 1 point for the quality of issue to issue, each individual issue. I'm looking out for my my reader who is trying to jump in, and I want to give you an idea there with that, so that if you do attempt to just jump into something. Now we go into the art. Art is worth 2 points. It's half the equation, so it's going to be about as much as the reading factor. The next is going to be cover art. We're going to give a point for that, up to a point, I should say. For me, what I like in a cover is a cover that does depict a little bit of what's going to happen in the issue. For example, I thought this was a really, really cool cover with Juggernaut here, but I can't actually remember anything about that. I can remember Scott Summers and this government agent, forgive me, I forgot his name, sitting in a restaurant, just chilling out, eating some food because Scott's starving, and he did, the agent's like, "What are you doing ordering?" He's like, "I'm starving," So yeah, I mean, a lot of things stick out in my mind, by the way, about this series. But to be honest with you, if I compiled another 24 odd issues, I'd have to go back to issue 1 and reread it all the way through again, because it's a fast read and a lot happens. Anyway, then we got the point. So we had the cover art, the art, and the coloring. Point for coloring. We got the 2 points for character development and world building, and then we have 1 point awarded for does it have legs? Do we want to see it go forward? All right, so let's get into this. So as far as sequential reading, this is a book that it actually managed to grab me initially, but then it started to lose me a little bit with the alien invasion thing. But once that started to kind of get cooking, where I knew that wasn't just going to be like a one and done, topic that they saved him and then he was gone in an issue or two. The fact that character remained and another character remained and we got past the Gray Malkin thing, that was also a plus in this series. Once we got cooking around issue 9-10, I was feeling this. I was actually really feeling the X-Men and the overall sequential read. It was very addictive. I blew through the issues very fast. I couldn't wait to open it. I actually was trying to savor it a little bit, and I was like, well, this is going to be over faster than I thought. So that was my reading experience. I'm not going to give it a perfect 2 because, like I said, there's moments that aren't perfect. It isn't the perfect representation of the X-Men, but it was absolutely positively satisfying. So this is going to match what Uncanny did, and we're going to give it a 1.75. As far as the single issue readability, I'm actually going to give this a 0.75 because every single issue reminded me of what it was like to be a younger man who didn't have money like I do from working hard today. I would look at a comic and I would just be so curious and so into it. And X-Men especially, back in the 90s, I didn't know that there was a sink in comic quality around then, or a perceived sink in quality around then. I just was looking at that amazing art and thinking, wow, I just could get into this and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's how every single issue of it gave me that nostalgia of peeking in a comic I knew not a thing about. So I'm gonna go ahead. Yeah, I mean, I think it deserves a 1 point or a 0.75 out of possible points. So now we're up to 2.5 points, I believe. 1.5 points out of a possible 3. 2.5 points. Okay. So now we're gonna get into the art. So the readability was fairly high across the board, but with the art, like I said, this was opening this up, was bringing that nostalgia back. Art was half the equation on that. So I'm gonna give this. The art wasn't quite as good as Uncanny X-Men, so I'm going to give it a 1.75, which is going to bring us to 4.25 points out of a possible 5, I believe. And then we got the cover art. For the cover art, there was a lot of issues where they were just kind of posing, and it was just very uninteresting. Like this. Or like this. But the quality of the art, generally, unless Ryan Stegman wasn't on the issue, the quality of the art usually stayed the same. This was a good one. Boring. Cool. So, yeah. Oh, and my personal favorite of the series. That was a cool one. Scott Summers looking badass. So, yeah. I mean, on the covers, let's go ahead and give it like a 0.5, bringing us to 4.75 out of a possible, 6 points. No need to go into a big thing about coloring. The coloring is absolutely perfect. 1 point. There's a little bit of character development and a little bit of world building, but more or less X-Men is fast action, quick decisions, and not everything actually makes the most sense, which is kind of what's cool about it, because you're following individuals who are thinking totally different than you, and you don't have the same options they do, so why would you act the same? That being said, they are setting up, future conflicts. They are setting up future enemies and future, they're definitely planting seeds, is what I should say, which is probably going to lead to the next category more. But there's a lot of seeds getting planted, and they're the vastness of who's got eyes on them, who cares about what they're doing, who wants them gone, who's trying to recruit some of them, etc. Like I said, there are some new mutant characters involved in this that are, growing into the group. And this is, for what it is, I'd say that you're getting what you need to get out of this. So let's give it a 1.5 out of the possible 2. And then as for the legs, I already mentioned the seeds. I'm ready for another 20-odd issues of this. Am I going to get it? I do not know. I do not know if we're getting the same team or if it's going to be a reset. I do know on the other brand, the Uncanny, it's going to be Gail Simone again. So we can cross our fingers. But let's go ahead and add up these points if I'm even capable of that, and let's see where we landed. All right, so I did my math, and we wound up at a final score of 8.25 out of 10. So that just barely ekes out Uncanny, I believe. I think they were 7.5, and I was kind of giving it a range of 7.5 or 6 to 8. So 8.25 just edges it out, which I thought, because I did enjoy X-Men a little bit more than Uncanny. I'm sorry that I wasn't dipping into the book's art a little bit more. The covers really tell the story about what you're gonna get. What doesn't tell the story is the general. I think I kind of got this idea that Uncanny was always supposed to be better, or always wound up being the best. And a few reviewers were kind of, I look to my reviewers just like, I hope you're looking to me. And to be honest with you, I was pleasantly surprised to be surprised. I liked it a little bit better. I liked it a little bit more straightforward. I liked the less complexity in the areas that it didn't need it, because they definitely kept the plot moving and made this simple thing pretty complex for what it actually is, which is X-Men, which has been done to death, and we all know that. And the fact that we're getting fresh comics still with writers that still have enough inspiration to make it fun, and top 8 points out of 10 on my rigid scale. Can you believe that? So yeah, Marvel kind of sucks. I'm sorry. I don't like a lot of their comics, but I'm glad they're getting X-Men and Uncanny at least close to what I expect of it. So anyway, that's the show. We're gonna be doing one more long read through only. It's about 5 issues. But we got some good comics coming out tomorrow. I'm really excited about Comic Hall Day. Are any of you watching collecting anything that you haven't seen me do yet that you want to see me review? Let me know in the comments. I'm open to some suggestions here. I'm having a lot of fun collecting, so I'm gonna keep doing it, and I'm gonna keep doing these videos, even though they're not getting as many clicks as the drum videos. There'll be some more of that too, and yeah, have a great night. Happy Tuesday, and I'll see you at the comic book store tomorrow.